They called him a barbarian, too wild to be remembered, too foreign to be understood. Yet the edges of their empires collapsed when his name echoed through the dust. They said he was chaos incarnate, but chaos doesn't forge systems that outlive kings, map networks faster than trade, or silence cities without siege. He spoke no Latin, wore no crown, built no marble palaces. Yet men who ruled continents knelt in the dirt before him, because they knew he was not asking. He didn't seek fame. He dismantled stagnation. Wherever order was fossilized, he shattered it with movement, with unpredictability, with the law of force, refined. His silence frightened courts more than rebellion, because it meant the storm had already begun moving. He didn't need their roads. He made the steppe into a circuit, their borders into crossroads, their messengers obsolete. When the Khwarezmian Sultan asked, "Who are you?" the reply was not words. It was fire, blood, and silence stretching across a continent. He named himself the punishment of God. And for those who defied him, divinity came not in scripture, but in the sound of hooves and iron. And when death came, it left no monument, no marble, no crown, no tomb, only a vanished trail across the steppe and the knowledge that nothing was safe after him. The story didn't begin with conquest. It began with hunger, cold wind, and a boy learning that mercy is not a law of the steppe. Before the world feared his name, he had to survive a world that didn't care if he lived. In the steppe, childhood is not a season. It is a brief mistake nature corrects. His father was a name that commanded respect, until respect turned into poison. When his father died, the tribe didn't mourn, it calculated. Loyalty in the steppe is never a promise. It is a bargain that expires. They were left with no horses, no protection, no place at the fire of anyone's future. Food became the first teacher, and it taught only one lesson. Take it or disappear. He learned to listen to silence because silence warns earlier than sound. Every night, the cold pressed closer, like the world trying to erase their shape. But he didn't break because breaking was a luxury only the safe could afford. A boy abandoned by his tribe becomes two things, prey or a blade. Even inside the family, hunger creates enemies before it creates unity. When power is scarce, even blood starts negotiating. The steppe did not give him a childhood. It demanded a decision. And one day, that decision took a life inside his own home. He didn't do it for cruelty. He did it because weakness invites extinction. That is the first truth the world misunderstands about him. The steppe shaped him before he shaped the world. Soon after, the past returned with ropes instead of words. The ones who abandoned him decided he was dangerous enough to cage. Captivity taught him another rule. Chains do not stop will, they only reveal it. At night, he listened to the camp breathe, and counted the rhythms of men who thought he was finished. He didn't escape with strength, he escaped with timing. A single man helped him, because even in brutal systems, rare loyalty still exists. And that is another truth most people miss. Empires don't begin with armies, they begin with one person choosing not to betray. He returned to the world not as a prince, not as a hero, but as something more dangerous. He returned as a survivor who had learned the cost of mercy and the price of hesitation. And from that moment, the steppe stopped raising a boy. It started forming a ruler. He didn't rise alone. Before empire, there was friendship and a promise made in fire. They called themselves Anda, not friends, not allies, something deeper. An oath like that doesn't fade with time. It only sharpens with distance. But power tests every bond, especially the ones we swore would never break. Temujin saw a system returning, one ruled by birth, not merit. He had lived through that system once. It left him with nothing. So he made a new choice. Loyalty to those who had nothing to offer but loyalty itself. He gathered those the old system rejected, not nobles, not princes, but fighters. He didn't build an army, he built allegiance. But oaths must choose sides, and someday they must draw blades. What began in fire would be tested in blood, because every empire has its shadow, and every brother has his reckoning. He had no army, no land, and no name worth following, but he had something more dangerous, certainty. Certainty doesn't shout, it doesn't plead. It moves forward and forces others to follow. The first man who followed him didn't follow strength. He followed silence. Temujin offered no security, no titles, no reward, only direction. What they saw wasn't destiny. It was velocity. The first men who joined him weren't warriors. They were survivors just like him. They didn't pledge loyalty. They shared fire. He didn't command them. He understood them. They came from different clans, different wounds, different betrayals. But pain speaks one language, and that language built a loyalty deeper than fear. He listened more than he spoke, because power grows in the silence between questions. His first battle wasn't for conquest. It was for presence. He didn't charge. He vanished, then returned. The enemy expected noise. What arrived was precision. He took the camp in minutes. Then he sat in silence, letting them understand. He didn't burn everything. He left one tent standing to let the story walk away. Because fear travels faster than fire. The fire wasn't in his words. It was in the pattern. He didn't become a leader because they loved him. He became one because they stopped questioning him. This wasn't leadership, it was formation. He didn't build a tribe. He dissolved them. One by one, names were abandoned. Lineages erased, clans became units. He didn't rule by blood, he ruled by oath. In 1206, under the eternal blue sky, he was no longer Temujin. He was Genghis Khan. The title didn't mean king, it meant axis, a center of gravity in a world ruled by motion. He outlawed hostage-taking, banned noble privilege, replaced tribal revenge with codified law. No one was born above another, except in duty. He restructured the army into units of 10, not bloodlines. Loyalty wasn't inherited. It was earned. For the first time, allegiance had a blueprint, and ambition had a shape. He didn't unite the steppe, he redesigned it. They had once shared blood, now they shared nothing. Jamuka had been born noble, Temujin had been born expendable, and never forgot it. One was crowned by lineage, the other by necessity. In 1201, they met at Dalan Baljut. Jamuka brought nobles and banners. Temujin brought silence and speed. One fought with tradition, the other with precision. Jamuka's center collapsed, quickly. He fled, but something stayed behind. Temujin captured 54 of his nobles. None were spared. They were not executed with blades, but with boiling water. This was not cruelty, it was communication. Jamuka returned, 4 years later. Not with an army, but with a request. Give me a noble death. Temujin granted it. No spectacle. No delay. Jamuka died, but the lesson lived. In 1206, Temujin was no longer a man, he was declared Genghis Khan. The title did not mean ruler, it meant axis. Blood no longer defined command, execution did. They feared siege engines. He brought mobility. They waited for columns of men. He sent waves of scouts, they expected brute force. He gave them pattern disruption, walls became irrelevant. When trust failed inside them, he didn't break cities. He broke alliances, he didn't burn libraries. He copied their maps, he offered terms before war. But not after. Those who refused mercy taught their neighbors to kneel faster. His sieges were not battles. They were demonstrations, what they called terror. He called consistency. He wasn't unpredictable. He was absolute. He didn't demand loyalty. He designed its cost. He didn't take cities. He made them obsolete. He never stormed the gates. He opened them from within. He didn't need to burn cities. He reprogrammed their relevance. His campaigns weren't loud. They were deliberate. When he took Zhongdu, he didn't raise a flag. He erased a direction. He offered mercy once. To test memory. The second time, he burned the maps and rewrote the borders. His war didn't conquer lands. It erased assumptions. He didn't want submission. He wanted integration. He didn't destroy cities. He outgrew them. He didn't wait for cities to fall. He made them obsolete. Walls weren't obstacles. They were opportunities. He didn't deploy siege towers. He deployed silence. Cities were not surrounded, and they were unraveled. He didn't collapse walls. He collapsed loyalties. An empire wasn't taken by force. It was dissected by diplomacy. He gave no ultimatum, just outcomes. He didn't erase cities, he copied them. Libraries weren't burned, they were decoded. He learned faster than they prepared. Mercy was never free, it was conditional. Resistance wasn't punished, it was displayed. Those who surrendered weren't spared, they were recruited. He didn't leave ashes. He left lessons. His method wasn't madness, it was repetition. He wasn't unpredictable. He was absolute. He left no city untouched, but not in ruins, in memory. He didn't burn everything. He made burning predictable. It wasn't chaos they feared. It was pattern. Each city fell differently, but remembered him the same. Silence, then smoke, always in that order. He was not a storm. He was the warning before it. Cities began surrendering before he arrived. That was the system. His legacy was not unpredictability. It was precision in repetition. He turned fear into architecture. He turned conquest into psychology. He didn't build an army. He built a protocol. He replaced orders with reactions. His troops didn't wait. They responded. Even in his absence, the structure moved. He didn't write laws for loyalty. He wrote them for repetition. Not what was forbidden, but what was allowed. His laws weren't moral. They were executable. The army wasn't just mobile. It was economic. They traded like nomads, but guaranteed like states. The West called it chaos, but the market said otherwise. His spies didn't whisper. They mirrored. Women didn't sit in tents. They managed them. Half of a war was knowing. He didn't leave behind ruins. He left behind rules. He didn't conquer cities. He rewrote their command. Legacy wasn't memory. It was transmission. He wasn't trying to be remembered. He was trying to be implemented. He didn't want permanence in stone. He created continuity in execution, because the structure continued to function. He didn't fall in battle. He vanished in motion. They say it was a fall from a horse. Others say it was fever, infection, vengeance. But history doesn't confirm. It repeats. He died in 1227, during the Western Xia campaign. But his generals didn't announce it. The command structure remained intact. The silence was strategic. No funeral, no tomb. Just execution of the next move. Even his grave was hidden. A king buried without a crown, but with continuity. Most empires collapse when their center dies. His did not. Because it had no center. He didn't need to survive. The framework did. He engineered a chain of command that didn't mourn. It mobilized. That was his final achievement. Not conquest, but uninterrupted function. He didn't die in memory. He was buried in protocol.